On your mark. Get set. Go!
It's the end of August, Fighting Irish faithful, and you know what that means? It's time for Notre Dame football. Thank you for joining us. We're going to kick off. Technically, this is episode 2 of the 2021 season. We're going to talk a lot about the preseason rankings, what we can take from that. Of course, we're going to talk about Brian Kelly. Why would we not talk about the head coach on the Fighting Irish Faithful podcast? We're going to talk about the direction of our offense this season. Very pivotal. And why are we not going to talk about Marcus Freeman? Everyone needs more Marcus Freeman in their life. So stay tuned. Let's go. Ready, set, hike, cue the music.
Golson throws, open receiver in the end zone. Touchdown, Notre Dame! Somehow, the Irish did it!
Out of the pack, 30, 35, goodbye, baby! At the 50, the 40, the 30, the 20, the 10, five, rocket touchdown, Irish!
Zibikowski looking for a block. Touch to the right to the 40. Gets a block, gets to the 45, 50. Up to the 45, 40, 30. One man to beat. 20, 15, 10. He's done to the 5. Touchdown, Irish!
Pour yourself a drink. What's going on, Fighting Irish faithful? Welcome back. Hope your summer has gone well. It's back to school and it's back to Notre Dame Fighting Irish Faithful podcast. This is episode 2. Episode 1 was right after the spring game. You can go back and listen to that if you want. Thank you for joining me, everyone. You can follow me on Twitter at faithful_Irish. If you're new, you've never found me, welcome. We'll kind of just dive right into the deep end. No, waiting in the shallows or nothing. We're just going to go right into it here. Thanks, everyone. We're really excited to kick off this season. Last year, the training wheels were on. We had COVID. I did not do the podcast with masks on or anything like that. We were secure in our home, quarantined at home. So let's get right into it. So we've poured ourselves our drink. We've got a scotch here. And let's do it. That's what we do on this podcast. We drink scotch and we talk about Notre Dame football. I'm going to try to not be so negative. Some people were telling me, man, you're really harsh. You're kind of negative. Yeah, I like realistic, but hey, we'll get started. So first thing I want to talk about, preseason rankings versus our final rankings at the end of the year. Yeah, we're going to start off with numbers right off the bat. So Notre Dame is 9th in the AP, and that actually ties a season high where they started at 9th in 2019. Which is interesting because that was also the year right after we went to the playoffs and lost by a lot of points. But we're 9th in the AP, and Kelly is starting his 12th year at Notre Dame as the head coach. I also think, though, that it is kind of dumb that the media, the press, whatever, ESPN, that they all put out preseason rankings. I know it's exciting, and here I am about to talk about it for the next 5-10 minutes or whatever, but I really think they should wait till about a third of the season is gone through, week 4, week 5 of college football, because then you actually have some data points, and you can say, oh, okay, this team is terrible. How about this? In 2012, USC started as number 1, and Notre Dame was completely unranked. By week 4 or 5, Notre Dame was in the top 15, and USC, I hope, was in hell. So, yay. But yeah, like I said, we were tied at 9th in 2019 as our highest preseason rank ever in the Kelly era. Now, pop quiz, Charlie Weiss, what was his highest rank starting the season? It was 2nd. Second pop quiz, was Lou Holtz ever ranked preseason number 1? That would be false. He was never ranked number 1. He was ranked 2nd twice. In the 3 years that Notre Dame ended this regular season undefeated, I wanted to go through how did we start preseason. So in 2020, last year, we started 10th. We finished 5th. In 2018, we started 12th, and we finished 5th as well. In 2012, we started the season unranked, but finished 4th in the AP. In 3 years, we started ranked, but then ended the season not ranked. These are the years that are not very good. In 2011, we started the preseason 16th. South Florida probably killed that, and we finished unranked. 2014, with Everett Golson, we started 17th, got really high, got in the single digits there, and then, of course, was unranked. And then 2016, we're not even going to talk about that season, but we did start 10th at that year when we went down to Texas. So, yeah, those were not good years. Surprisingly, though, in 2014, it did finish on a high note because we did win the Music City Bowl with Malik Zaire. Now, there were 2 seasons that Notre Dame started unranked but finished ranked. In 2012, as I mentioned before, we ended 4th in the AP. And 2017, we ended the season 11th in the AP, and we won our bowl game. So over the past 11 seasons that Kelly has been there, what am I getting at? There is only 1 year where we started at a lower rank or unranked, finished at a higher ranking, and won our bowl game. That is the only year, 2017. Now, that's not quote unquote hard to do after you start in the depths of hell and you're all the way at the bottom basement of a 4-8 season, and you can everybody, and you bring in a new offensive coordinator, a new defensive coordinator, the whole thing. I think we even had new cleats or something, with Under Armour going on, but that is the only season, 2017. So I have high expectations for us this year. We're starting 9th. Kelly is in year 5 of Kelly 2.0. And he's been communicating, and he's been, I think, bringing a level of focus to the program that he hasn't in the past. I hope that by starting 9th, we will finish the season ranked higher, and we will win a BCS-style bowl game, playoff game. Or heck, if we win the title, I'm going to be a really happy guy here. Lots of scotch in celebration of that. Brian Kelly, over the last 4 seasons, has a win percentage of 84%, which is really, really good. And he's gone undefeated in the regular season 3 times. I'm including last year with that. I'm not counting the ACC championship game. I'm counting that as a New Year's Six, quote unquote, style bowl game. It's a game of consequence, right? It's for a conference title. It's for a big trophy, right? He has a 72% win percentage for his career at Notre Dame as well. So these are all very, very good things. So I don't want to come on here and be petulant and spoiled and pee all over Brian Kelly's, front porch here. Okay, he has done very good things at Notre Dame. Some of these things that I think were necessary during his tenure. I've also already talked about how Brian Kelly is coaching at a time where he's coaching against 2 of the best coaches of all time in Nick Saban and Dabo Swinney. I talk about this in other episodes as well. So go back and listen to the previous ones for that kind of analysis. But Brian Kelly had to break tradition at Notre Dame. He inherited a program from Charlie Weiss, which was better than where it was before, but still not at all where it needed to be. We saw natural grass. The helmets were still being painted by hand by students and had this kind of khaki brown, terrible color. It was not gleaming gold like the dome at all. When they went to the hydrographics helmet, they're the best helmet in all of college football. There's no need for Notre Dame ever to put anything else on top of their head. They went from Adidas to Under Armour and got stock in Under Armour during Brian Kelly's. They got a Jumbotron. They went to turf instead of grass. So Brian Kelly was around for all of these transitions, for all of these new things at Notre Dame. And I thank Brian Kelly for doing that. And I think he has been a good ambassador. Could another coach have done it? Yes or no? I don't know. And I'm sure Brian Kelly has actually encouraged some of these things as well. He's also coaching in a time where there's social media, Twitter, all of this that you say could be taken out of context quite quickly in the media, and information moves just so much faster. I thank Brian Kelly for doing that, and I think he will be remembered not only as having a good winning percentage and coming out of a very terrible season in 2016, but he will be remembered as the head coach that took Notre Dame to the next level to modernize the program. I wish he would have more wins of consequence, such as a BCS game or even a national title. And I'm not going to step down from that being the standard of this podcast, but at the same time, I can be grateful and thankful for Brian Kelly for those things. So he's modernized the program. He's transitioned the program to where it is now. There's not much more he can do from a transitions period. The stadium is bigger, right? You know, it's got box seats and all this other fun stuff. That's where Brian Kelly is, and that's where he's going forward. Furthermore, what I want to say about Brian Kelly is if you go back to the end of the Rose Bowl, right? We had just lost Alabama. It was a very convincing win for Alabama, and Notre Dame did hold Alabama to their least number of points scored all season. Notre Dame lost by less points to Bama than Ohio State did in the national title game. So he gets credit for that and producing that performance of his football team. Still didn't win, so I'm not going to, pat him on the butt and say good job, but I will give him a head nod for that. But Brian Kelly in the press conference after the game was giving a lot of questions, and he really, his annoyed coachness was really coming out. And one thing he said was he's going to keep coming back here. He's going to keep pushing. He's going to keep pursuing. He's not giving up. I really, really appreciate and respect his response at that moment in that press conference. Being tenacious in the face of adversity is what Notre Dame football is all about. And I don't know if he now gets it or he's gotten it during COVID and they had to transition and really, be like, get into the shell like the Spartans in 300, hold, is it something like that where Kelly and the team really had to focus in and struggle through adversity, and that was a growing period for him as a head coach, and he's being met with all this criticism. He's playing arguably one of the best coaches ever in all of college football, losing again by a noticeable margin. And his response was, we're going to keep coming back here. We're not going to quit. We're not giving up. We're going to keep recruiting. We're going to keep pursuing, and we're going to keep getting better. That is the head coach of Notre Dame. That is our head coach that I can be proud of. And that's a guy I can get behind and respect and champion. So, Coach, keep making those kind of comments. Keep making those kind of speeches. And I'm actually enjoying listening to some of your press conferences lately. I'm getting less propaganda and coach speak, and I'm getting more of your smug sarcasm. And I'm really, really digging that. You're not worrying about looking politically correct sometimes. I mean, you tend to carry yourself well. Don't get me wrong. You're not flying off the handle or anything. But your sarcasm is coming out more, and I'm really appreciating that. So keep it up. So as Brian Kelly has evolved, so too does the program in general, but also the offense. Now, in this off season, over the summer, I've listened to other podcasts, and it's been entertaining. And first off, sidebar, you all, if you haven't heard, and you've clearly noticed, I do not podcast in the off season. There is a reason for that. The main reason is there's no football going on, and what am I going to talk about? And two, I like to compartmentalize this to the season, make it that much more special during the fall and into the early days of winter here in comfortable Indiana. and so that's fine. If other people want to podcast year round and talk about recruiting and talk about, this, that happened and that's fine. Respect, but that's not going to be me. I don't have Christmas lights on my house year round either. I put those up during Christmas. So Notre Dame football and the podcast is during football season. But a lot of these other people are talking about the high-powered offense and how Tommy Rees is going to modernize the offense. And I was very critical of Rees last year, and the poor performance of some of these things in our offense that were glaringly obvious, which is why I said there's no way we were going to beat Alabama. Number one was scoring offense. We finished the season ranked 30th last year. We were 52nd in passing touchdowns. We were 84th in red zone touchdowns. And we were 102nd in red zone scoring, period. That is the worst red zone scoring Notre Dame has ever had under Brian Kelly. That includes field goals. 2012, at least we made a lot of field goals to beat USC, right? So I agree that we need to improve the offense. And I agree that we need to do something different. But no one is talking about how Rees needs to do that. No one is describing what this new modern offense is going to look like. What do they mean? The only thing I gather from other individuals who are podcasting is they're talking about passing. We're going to pass the ball. We're going to sling it, chuck it, go Will Fuller, Golden Tate all year. And hell, if we had Golden Tate and Will Fuller both on the team next year, national champion, no question, right? Those were two of my favorite, players and receivers that Notre Dame had, other than Tim Brown and the Rocket. But Tommy Rees also did some really good things last year, and I walked back from my initial position that he should have been fired after doing some analysis. Listen to this, Fighting Irish faithful. There are some very good things he did. He was 14th in the nation in total touchdowns scored, 5th in the nation in rushing touchdowns. So despite the poor passing offense, we still finished top 15, 14th in total touchdowns. That's really good. 26th in the nation in total offense, 7th in the nation in third down conversion percentage. That's really good, keeping those drives alive, eating the clock, and 7th in the nation in time of possession. Also, we ran the ball 58% of the time. If we didn't do that, Fighting Irish faithful, I guarantee that we would not have had the success last year that we did. And I'm going to explain why running the football is the strength of Tommy Rees's offense and why he should not abandon that, why he should double down on that, literally, because he has two good running backs, Kyron Williams and Chris Tyree. One other aspect of his offense that he can use as a wild card weapon for both the offense rushing and passing is our tight end, who is only a sophomore and has his own song on this podcast, who we'll talk about next episode. But I do have some concerns about the offense, the offensive line, the receivers, and of course a new quarterback that's fresh and a transfer in Jack Cohn. The offensive line, though, is the key for us to run the football. Run blocking, pass blocking, protection of the quarterback, making proper reads, etc. Without a good offensive line, we're going to have some problems there. Over the last 10 years, I looked at what a high-powered offense actually looks like. I'm not just going to come out here and give blind, sweeping accusation that Tommy Rees needs to do a high-powered offense. I'm not just going to come out here and do that. Instead, I'm going to quantify what that looks like. A high-powered offense is a team that is winning the national champion. And what is that? So I looked at the national champions over the last 10 years. What do their offenses do? So on average, over the last 10 years, they rank 6.7th, almost top 6 in total touchdowns scored. They score a total of 78 touchdowns every season. They finished 10th in scoring offense, averaging 42 points a game. They finished 11th in rushing touchdowns, averaging 37 a year. 15th in passing touchdowns at 39 per year. And 17th in total offense of 491.8 yards per game. That is a high-powered offense. That is a modern offense, if we were calling the last 10 years modern, okay? That should be the watermark that Tommy Rees and Notre Dame are aiming at. Now, last year, our rushing offense was really, really close on the rushing side. We had 33 rushing touchdowns in 2020, second only to 2017 with 35, okay? So very close to the national champion average of 37. Three other things of note for a high-powered offense. They average a yards per point. I talk about this every episode, of 11.7 yards for every point they score. That's the efficiency of their offense. And they win their games with a scoring margin of 27 points. Finally, they run the ball on average 56% of the time. That is absolutely paramount to this investigation, because I wanted to look at Notre Dame and under Brian Kelly, the years they did run the ball well, and is there a correlation to their success? And shocking, there is. The team that ran the ball the most was 2017 with Josh Adams. Notre Dame ran the ball 61.4% of the time. Then last year, 58%, 2012, 56, 2018, 56, 2015, 55, and 2019, 53%. What was our record in each of those years? 76%, 83%, 92, 92, 76, and 84. Every single one of those seasons, we won 10 games or more, period. Now, we didn't win our bowl games every year, and, the defense was what they were, okay? In 2015, we had Brian Van Gorder, so, But look at some of these other stats that jump out of the page. I already mentioned the number of rushing touchdowns in 2017. In 2019, we scored 67 total touchdowns. That's the highest ever under Brian Kelly. Our scoring offense, that same season, we averaged 36 points per game. Okay, about a touchdown-ish short of the national champion average. Okay, that's less than a touchdown. Our scoring margin was also the highest in 2019. So running the ball is paramount to ensuring that we have success. Okay, the one wild card of this group of 6 seasons is 2012. In 2012, I don't know how we made the national championship and how we went undefeated in the regular season. It was truly a miracle season, and it warms my heart. But there are stats that jump out of the page that's like, how did we do so well? Yards per point, 15.97. It is the worst it ever was under Brian Kelly. Our scoring offense, 25. It was the worst under Brian Kelly. And total touchdowns, 38, was also the worst, despite running the ball 56% of the time. But our defense was really, really good in 2012. So, and Purdue was not very good in 2012, although Purdue scored the most points against Notre Dame other than Alabama. So, yay for winning by a field goal to beat Purdue. So, sorry, Purdue. We love you, Purdue. But Brian Kelly's worst 5 seasons, 2010, 2011, 2013, 14, and 16, with a win percentage no better than 69% in 2013, we ran the ball as follows. The worst year of running the ball, 46% of the time in 2010. A lot of that Cincinnati offense was coming in, a lot of passing. 2011, 47%. 2013, 50.6%. 2014, with Everett Golson making his comeback, 51%. And 2016, 53%. The worst win percentage, of course, is that last one, running the ball 53% of the time. And having Brian Van Gorder in just a complete grease fire of a season, it was absolutely, absolutely terrible. A few other things to note. Our turnover margin was really bad. Not in the 2010 season, but in 2011. That's funny because that was Tommy Rees, who was our quarterback, who's now our offensive coordinator. So Maybe this is a really good lessons learned kind of situation, hard knocks kind of situation. But rushing touchdowns, we scored the fewest rushing touchdowns in 2010. We only scored 11. That's pretty bad. So I hope this is convincing all of you that necessary success that comes when you run the football. On average, if Notre Dame runs the ball 53 to 55 or even up to 60%, or hell, the national champion average of 56%, they will win more than 10 games. That's certainly enough to put us up there for winning a Sugar Bowl or something. So fingers crossed, let's do it. Now that's looking very macro, looking at every season, looking at the end season results. I also wanted to look at individual games to further drill this point in of why running the football is important. I looked at what I consider some of the best wins Brian Kelly has had in each of the following seasons. In 2020, last year, Notre Dame beat Clemson in overtime. We ran the ball 51%. In 2012, Oklahoma, going to Norman, beating Bob Stoops. Fourth quarter, we exploded. We ran the ball 59% of the time that game. Utah, 2010. Utah was higher ranked, came into South Bend. Brian Kelly was at a really low point in his first season. We won by 25 points and we ran the ball 59%. 2017, a complete ass kicking of USC. Love it. We won by 35 points and we ran the ball 68% of the time. 2018 versus Stanford, 62% run percentage. And 2015, Texas, the highest it ever was, 69% running with my buddy Malik Zaire. The one outlier, one of my all-time favorite games that Notre Dame has, is a 37-0 shutout of Michigan in 2014, where we only ran the ball 47% of the time. Remember the 6. So that I wanted to throw that one in there because I love that game. I have a shirt about it. But that is the one outlier of where we completely dominated another team and we didn't run the ball more than 50% of the time. Now, I also wanted to look at some of Notre Dame's worst losses as well to prove the opposite point. And some of the games are this way, and there are a few other exceptions. But 2012, Notre Dame getting their butt kicked by Alabama, losing by 28 points in the national championship. We ran the ball only 34% of the time. USC in 2014, the worst loss ever for Brian Kelly. We only ran the ball 39% of the time. Two of these other losses, Michigan in 2019 and Clemson in 2018, 51 and 50% respectively. The one outlier is Miami in Hard Rock, where Notre Dame lost by 33 points and ran the ball a surprising 57% of the time. But quite frankly, they had deviated from their rushing attack that they had done previous with power running between the tackles with Josh Adams. They were trying to run to the edge against Miami. Who runs to the edge against a fast team like Miami in their stadium, which was completely berserk, and everyone, half the cocaine in Miami was probably snorted that night. That was an embarrassing game. It was terrible. So let's not talk about it anymore. So bottom line, Notre Dame, run the football, run it 55 to 60% of the time, guaranteed 10-win season. Now, let's talk about everyone's favorite assistant coach, Marcus Freeman, our new defensive coordinator. A couple episodes ago, I laid out why he is the absolute perfect hire for the job. His performance at Cincinnati was even better than Clark Lee last year, and Notre Dame and Brian Kelly, Jack Swarbrick, the whole crew, they did a very, very good job of ensuring that they got this man when Clark Lee left to take the Vanderbilt job. Go back to 2 episodes ago where I lay out all the numbers proving why Marcus Freeman is amazing. And I'm really optimistic to have this guy because we're going to now use him with very experienced, very talented players and better talent and better resources than what he had at Cincinnati. Specifically, players like Myron Tagovailoa-Amosa, our linebacker returning, Drew White, Isaiah Foskey, Kurt Heinisch, the Viking in the trenches there, and my man, Kyle Hamilton. Got to give respect to Kyle Hamilton. However, I'm going to be a voice of reason here about Marcus Freeman. I think he's a good hire. I think how he's carried himself. I've heard him in a few interviews with a few other podcasts and whatnot, and that's all great. But some people out there, other podcasters, my brethren here, they're already crowning him the next head coach. They're already literally printing T-shirts with his name and stuff. And hey, that's fine. You do you, okay? But I'm going to be the voice of reason here. He hasn't coached a single game at Notre Dame. We've been hurt before, Notre Dame fans. Remember Charlie Weiss. He comes in. He's got these Super Bowl rings flashing him. Oh, man, he's an alum of Notre Dame too. So he's a Notre Dame man. And his first 2 seasons, we go 10 wins those first 2 seasons. And we almost beat USC with this crazy cheating Bush push thing, which was cheating, but, we can't rewrite the history books, whatever. Okay. And then the next 3 seasons were awful. And 2 of those seasons I was at Notre Dame for, right? Wasting talent like Golden Tate, Jimmy Clausen, and a few other players is terrible. And he was fired as he should have been. But then also we had a defensive coordinator quite recently that came to Notre Dame under Brian Kelly, Brian Van Gorder. Very high on this guy. His second game ever, he shuts out Michigan 37-0 with the fist pump that has been heard around the world. This is high-powered, aggressive defense, blitzing like no other, players coming out of nowhere. He's molding a young defense into being something that they hadn't been before. He was a Broyles Award winner in 2003 from the SEC, from Georgia. We were all very high on Brian Van Gorder. Unfortunately, he had the worst defenses of all at Notre Dame. My point is this. Let's pump the brakes a little bit with Marcus Freeman. I love the guy. I think he's great. I think he's deserving of the job. But he has to execute now in the job. So I'm going to sit back in the back seat of the station wagon here. I'm not even facing forward. It's one of those station wagons that faces the rear, right? Okay. Let's pump the brakes here. Let's win by 27 points, okay? Let's hold Florida State to under 14 and under 300 yards, okay? 14 points. And let's beat the crap out of them in Tallahassee as they're doing their stupid tomahawk chop stuff, okay? And then I'll get on the bandwagon. But let's let him coach one game. Let's do that. Coach one game, and then we'll talk about it. And then maybe I'll buy one of those shirts. But I'm not going to do it before he coaches a single game. If we go down to Tallahassee, all right, and Mike Norvell has turned things around this year, and we lose, okay, I'm going to just let that pause sit out there. Look, I like the guy. I don't want to be negative here, but look, let's embrace some reality here. Our next show here, I don't want to go into player specifics. We're going to have that be for next episode, but we're going to talk about our players, talk about the production that carried over from last year and what we need to see this coming season. I've already talked about passing. We definitely need more from our receivers. Going to talk about our new quarterback, Jack Cohn, our transfer from Wisconsin, who was named the starter. We're going to talk about the captains, and we will start to preview our opponents coming up. I have saved this to the end. The toast of the night is going out to the doc. I love you. You are amazing. You support this podcast, but you are also now the mother of my son, and I love you very much. To you, the doc. Cheers. Thank you, everyone, for joining me. You can find me on Twitter at faithful_Irish. Thank you to everyone on Facebook Live who's been checking this out. Take care. Good night. God bless. Go Irish. Beat the beginning of the season.